Hello everyone, my name is Debbie Jones-Snyders and I'm delighted to welcome you to Hopedale Presbyterian Church's Church School and activities. Happy Thanksgiving everyone. There's much that we can be thankful for. Our stories today, there are two. God calls Abram and Abraham's sacrifice, and this is adapted from Mission Bible class with images by Sweet Publishing and free Bible images. We have a variety of coloring activities and 2 crafts, as well as some other activities such as word search. First, we have 2 stories and they go together. The first story is God calls Abram. So, did you know that God once told a man that he would have so many children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and so on, that their number would be greater than the grains of sand on an entire seashore? That man's name was Abram, and we're going to be learning more about him today. God later changes his name to Abraham. So the story, God calls Abram. Once there was a man named Abram who loved God very much and had faith in him. Abram and his wife, Sarah, lived in the city of Haran, and what today we call Turkey, so a city in Turkey. Sadly, Abram and Sarah could not have children, but this did not stop Abram from having faith in God. God loved Abram and Sarah, but God also loved all of the other families in the world. So God made a plan to bless everyone. His plan was that he would use Abram and Sarah to begin a family that would become very, very big. Their family would be so big that it would be a nation, and this nation would help the world. Everyone in the world would someday be blessed through Abram's family. So one day God told Abram to leave his country and his relatives and go to a new land that he would show him. God did not say where the new land was. He just told Abram to go and that he would show him later. Faith means believing something to be true even if you can't see it. Abram had faith in God even though he could not see him. In the Bible, book of James, we read, if faith does nothing, then that faith is dead. Some people might say that they have faith in God, but be too afraid or disobedient to obey him. That kind of faith is like a dead faith. But Abram had a living faith. He trusted in God and was willing to do what he said. Abram and his wife, Sarah, began packing up everything they owned. Abram's nephew, Lot, and all of Abram's servants and helpers also joined in. Abram and his relatives left their country forever. Now they would live in tents and travel around wherever God told them to go. In the land of Canaan, God told Abram to have a good look around. Other people lived there, but someday Abram's children and grandchildren would own this land. And remember how Abram and Sarah had no children? God promised that that would change someday. God wanted Abram to have a family that would bring blessings to everyone. God would start a great nation from Abram. God would bless Abram because he obeyed him. Abram's descendants would be as numerous as the stars in the sky and as the sand on the seashore. This is what God said. And now the next part of the story. This part of the story is about Abraham's sacrifice. It's about how Abraham trusted God even when he did not understand what God was going to do. So time passed, and Abram and Sarah got older. God had changed Abram's name to Abraham. Many, many years ago, God decided to build a great nation so that this nation could follow him and bless the world. God chose Abraham as the man who would begin this nation. Have you ever tried to count how many stars there are in the sky at night? There are too many to count. Well, God told Abraham that counting his descendants would be like trying to count stars. He would have so many grandchildren and great-grandchildren and great-great-great-grandchildren, great-great-great-great-great-grandchildren that no one could even count them. Abraham believed God, but as the years went by, he and his wife, Sarah, wondered how God would make this happen. They were getting older and older, and they still had no children together. But of course, God kept his promise. Finally, when Abraham was 100 years old and Sarah was 90 years old, they had a baby, and they named their son Isaac. Abraham and Sarah loved Isaac very much and looked forward to the day when Isaac would marry and have children. Then those children would grow up and have children, and those children would also grow up and have children. Abraham loved his son and loved God. And even though Abraham loved God and believed what God said, a day came when Abraham was tested. The testing day was the day God asked Abraham to do a very difficult thing. During the time of Abraham, people showed their devotion to God by placing food or sometimes an animal they had killed on an altar and burning it up. This was called a sacrifice. Even though Abraham knew about this kind of sacrifice, he had never heard about the kind of sacrifice that God asked of him on this testing day. God said, "Take your only son, Isaac, the son you love, go to the land of Moriah. There kill him and offer him as a whole burnt offering. Do this on one of the mountains there. I will tell you which one." Most people would have said, "No way, God." After all, Abraham loved Isaac. Besides, Isaac was his only son. God had promised him that Isaac would grow up and have children, and his children would grow up and have children, so that one day God's people would be so many that no one could count them. If Isaac died, this could never happen. And that is when Abraham realized something very important. God would always do the right thing. If he obeyed God, even in this very hard thing, God would make it all right in the end. He thought that maybe God would let Isaac die, but then he would bring him back to life. Abraham did not understand exactly what would happen, but he had faith in God. He would do what God said. When Abraham and his son got to the top of the mountain, they stacked stones on top of stones to build an altar. Isaac asked his father what animal they would put on the altar. Only Abraham knew that Isaac would be the one on the altar instead of an animal.
And then the time came for Abraham to do what God had said and kill his son. But do you think that Abraham actually killed his son? No, he did not. At the last minute, an angel called out in a loud voice and told Abraham to stop. Even though God knew that Abraham had enough faith to obey him, God did not want him to actually kill Isaac. What a relief. God would never want a person to be killed and burned on an altar. Abraham looked up and saw a ram caught in some bushes. He and Isaac offered the ram as a sacrifice on the altar. On that day, Abraham learned that he loved God more than anything else. He would always have faith in God. And Isaac continued to grow up and follow God. And guess what? He had children, and then they had children, and then they had children, and so on. And as years passed, the number of Abraham's descendants became so many that they were as difficult to count as the number of stars in the sky. We have several activities for you depending on your interest and age level. You will need to print the templates. We have 4 coloring pictures for Thanksgiving. Oh no, it's 4 total coloring pictures. And we have a coloring picture of Abraham. We have 2 crafts. The first craft is a 3D paper star. And you will need to print the templates. The template will come out with 4 stars, and because you're using 2 together to make 1 3D star, you will be able to make 2 3D stars from one template. If you want to make more, you'll need to print more. So what you'll do, you'll also need to get certain supplies, so various coloring implements, and like crayons or markers or coloring pencils, some glitter, some glue for the glitter, hole puncher, yarn, and scissors. So once you've decorated your stars and cut them out, I decorate them on both sides. Then you will see that 2 of them fit together. Okay, so you'll see, cut one where the dotted line is so that you can fit them together. So just like here, I have one that's cut and one that fits in like that. So they match up. So you'll have to find the matching ones for the stars and then put them together. Whoops, that one's falling off. Oh well. You put them together and then cut, use a hole puncher, cut some yarn, and hang them up. The second craft is a poster. And here's the template for the poster. Oops. So it says on it, God will provide. Just like God provided the ram as the sacrifice in the story. So you'll need construction paper, the template, some cotton batting, some things to color with, and some glue. So color your picture
except for the fur of the ram. Put some glue on there, and then put the cotton batting on, and then you can glue that on the construction paper like that. And then if you want to hang it up, you can always use cut yarn, use a hole puncher, and you can hang it up. So then you can have your poster which says God will provide. The other activities include two mazes, a word search, crossword puzzle, and an anagram. So this week, remember that we should try to have faith like Abraham. We should be willing to give up anything if it will help us serve God better. We should be thankful for all the blessings and the love God gives us, especially at this time of Thanksgiving. Thank God for everything. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Have a great week.